My son just said, I gave him one of those, and he goes, I mean, if I needed to survive on those, I could. So if that's not a review, you better make this. Okay, carnivore crackers, here we go. Let's make them together, and we'll walk you through every step. Sorry about those lights. I think I need them on. We have an old house. It's an old farmhouse, and the lighting is a little weird. Okay, so we start with 4 eggs, crack them right into the blender. Usually I make double batches. I think tonight I might make 1 batch of my regular recipe and then another batch of my dessert recipe. Which, if you're new to carnivore and you need to get rid of sweet taste, I would not use the dessert version of this, but I'm in a good place, and so I use them sparingly. So 4 eggs, let's bring you down here. 4 eggs, and then 4 tablespoons of butter. I usually have, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just gonna cut that right there. And I just put it right into the blender, nice and cold. I used to heat it up, but it blends fine. So pop that in, and then 4 scoops, which turns out to be a tablespoon, of beef gelatin. And then we will pop that on the blender, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, we've got a sheet of parchment paper on my hot cookie sheet. And then, so you can see that the gelatin has bloomed. So we need to help it out a little bit. And I'm gonna pop this right on the cookie sheet, and then you'll see how I spread it out. So get all that good stuff from the bottom, make sure not to miss anything. All right, so I've got this all coming out. And remember, I'm gonna use the blender for my other version. So all I'm gonna do is just carefully, it's smoothing out really nicely because it's a hot pan. But it will continue to do that as you, I have a big chunk of butter. I'm just gonna pop that in my blender for the next version. Usually I blend it a little bit more. Okay, so I get that spread out, and you'll see what happens as it gets set up in the oven. All right, let's pop it in the oven. Do you like my oven mitts? Don't do this at home, kids. All right, I'm gonna pop this in. And then I'm gonna make my other version. So we're gonna do 4 eggs, same drill. And this time I'm gonna use half gelatin and half prime protein, or sorry, it's not prime. It is Equip protein powder. Yeah, it's prime protein. Equip prime protein. Whoops. Pay attention, Jess. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what I'm gonna do is 2 scoops of gelatin. 1, 2. And then what I've been doing is, I don't love to use too much stevia. In fact, I never really do. My husband loves this version. I also don't really love sweet tastes on carnivore. As a food addict, in recovery, I don't love to, sometimes that can wake up cravings. These don't though, these are nice and fatty and protein rich, that just a little bit of vanilla doesn't do much to my cravings and dopamine centers, but you just gotta be aware of that. Forgot the butter, adding that in. Okay, here we go. All right, you know the drill. I'm gonna add that mixture to the cookie sheet right in the middle. Then we'll spread it out. This one is gonna be a little bit looser because it doesn't have as much gelatin in it to thicken it up. And that is totally fine. And I'll show you what I do with the first savory version in just a second, now that it's all set up. This one is starting to get set up. It's nice and puffy. And what I'm gonna do is make sure that I add some flaky salt. It might be a little bit late for it to stick. I usually like to do it a little bit earlier. And then rosemary. So if you're somebody on carnivore that can do some spices, this is a good thing to add. Just kind of gives it that cracker taste. All right, that's hot. Let's put that back in. Okay, we're about like 10-15 minutes in to the savory version with the salt and rosemary. And I'm going to show you how I just get this off of the parchment for a moment. Whoops. And then I just take the corners, now that I know, and flip it. And this is where we make it into crackers. So make your little cracker size. Smaller you go, obviously the more surface area you're gonna get. Obviously the more crackers you're gonna get. And you are just gonna roll this in both directions. I don't worry about separating them. You can if you want to, just to make sure that the air gets in between. But it looks pretty good to me, and I'm gonna pop this back in. You can put the rock salt on this. This might be a little early to flip. Yeah, see how it's too early to flip because it's not brown on the bottom. So we're just gonna let that go a little bit longer. I'm gonna be honest with you. Some nights I make these and I just eat the whole thing for dinner. Okay, we're partway through on the vanilla ones, and I'm just gonna flip that and give it a little. I'm gonna go ahead and cut these up. They're not as brown as the other ones. I'm being a little lazy, but you can see that they're poofier, right? There's a little bit more of a poof. Kind of goes down once you take it out of the heat. They'll go down to a cracker size. Zoop. All right, keep those. Okay, so let's get this back in the oven. This is how we're looking on the savory ones. Looking pretty good. It's hot. And I'm gonna put that back in because I like them a little bit crispier. I've made them as carnivore crackers and I want them to be like, you know, crunchy like crackers, but I've learned to like them a little bit better when they're not as dry and they're a bit spongier. Hard to explain, but they're really good. These smell amazing. They don't look the same because again, they have less gelatin and they've got the protein powder. So they get a little bit of a, almost like a puff pastry poof. So you can go for as long as you want. They're already cooked through. There's no like raw egg. Tastes like dessert. That vanilla protein is really a strong taste. I'm gonna go longer on these though. Dinner tonight is just a bowl of ground meat. This is 80% beef. No nonsense. Just a bowl of beef. It's the other half of what I made and had for lunch. So you can see on the side here, we've got some thinner, crispier ones. Like I said, I don't love them as much as I used to. I go for more of like the spongier version. So you can kind of see that in the middle. Can you see that? I kind of go for the spongier ones. So crispy on one side, softer on the side that I didn't bake it for too much longer. The salt comes through. The rosemary comes through. By the way, this would also hold up really well if you didn't cut it into crackers. You could just make it as a flatbread, put some egg in it, use it as a bun. I just love to have it as a snack. I'm gonna save these for tomorrow. In fact, I'm going to pick up my son again. So I'm gonna keep the oven off. I just turned it off. It was on 400, by the way. And we'll see what they're like when I get home. This is how I cook. It might be a little chaotic for you, but it's not that serious. Okay, take a look at this one. How fun. So good. Put a little carnivore ice cream inside of that. Heck yeah. Try this one. Okay, and this is how we store them. Glass container right here on the counter. Like I said, they're not lasting for long.